Hey everyone, Christy here. Wanting to just take a few minutes to talk about the topic of leadership again today. And I actually love talking about leadership. And again, I just often write stuff down that I found helpful, and I hope that today is encouraging and challenging for you. I want to talk about the importance of spiritual leadership. So if you are a leader, you have to think of yourself as a spiritual leader. We're spiritual beings, but we also lead from the place of being a spiritual person. And people don't need us. They need the God in us, and they need the presence of God. And so oftentimes, if we look at what leadership is, it's built on two things. It's built on character and it's built on competence. It's not built on charisma. Charisma is often what we confuse as someone who is a leader, but lots of people have charismatic gifts. I mean, Hitler was, charismatic. And so actually the word charisma is the word translated spiritual gifts in the Bible. So charisma is something that God gives to us, but gifts are not what determine the effectiveness of longevity in leadership. And so when it comes to being a spiritual leader, we need to be competent. We need to have the character of God within us. So competence without character actually leads to catastrophe. So I want to just take this scripture out of Hebrews chapter 11 real quick. This is like four things from a few verses here, verses 24 through 27, where it talks about by faith what Moses did. So this is the chapter of faith. Moses is the father of the faith. Like, how did Moses get to that place? So four things. One is he was a spiritual leader that knew who he was. And I often say this, but I can't tell you how many leaders don't know who they are. And the one thing that the enemy will always come after you as a leader is, who do you think you are? Like, why should you get to do this? Why should you get to lead? Your kids aren't doing really well, or you haven't been able to have children, or look at what you did in your past. I mean, the enemy will haunt you with old records. So you have to know who you are. Moses had to know who he was. That identity, kind of crisis in him, like he had the choice. Am I going to go back to, a place of, where I'm unknown, or am I going to stay in comfort? Am I going to stay in luxury? Am I going to stay in the palace? Or am I going to go to my people? So that identity question, that had to get, worked out in Moses. He said in verse 24, by faith, it was Moses, when he had grown up, he refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He had that identity crisis, and he chose to live from the place that God had called him. So, we could pretend that this was easy. No, this was a tough decision. You're talking about, walking away from people that you love and know and that have taken care of you. This would not be easy. And that identity thing in us is that we like to stay in what's familiar. But Moses, he got to the place where he didn't even allow, what he had come from in being raised to identify who he was for his future. The second thing is that he was sacrificial. Like it says in verse 25 that he chose to be mistreated. Like, just think about this for a minute. Moses chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than enjoy the pleasures of sin for a short time. Hello? Like, he chose it. He chose to die to himself. Now, here's the thing. He didn't just choose to die to himself. He chose to be mistreated. That's like a whole different level. Like, he chose to live outside of comfort in order to obey what God was asking him to do. And I think in our culture, there's almost like this belief system. Like, if I'm going to serve God, like, there is no talk about being mistreated. It's sort of like, if I serve God, then this is what I'm looking for, or this is what I want. And, I'll serve God if I get this. I mean, there's none of this sort of like, sacrificial talk. And it's crippled us as leaders and the power of our witness in the church as leaders, because the truth is we only sacrifice in the things that we really value. And when it comes to ministry is all about sacrifice. And we have to ask ourselves the question, what do we want multiplied? How many of us do we want? In what we're leading, how many of us do we want? Do we want people that actually, are willing to sacrifice and willing to lay their lives down for others? I mean, that's how Moses lived. We have to ask ourselves that question, because what we've sown actually in the last several years in the church is we've sown into platform, and we have sown into superstardom. And we have reaped the fruit of that. And it has been crippling. It has been crippling to leaders, and it has been crippling to the effectiveness of the church. And what it's created is that it's created a audience rather than an army. And what it's created is that it's created hey, I want to come and I want. It's that consumer, mindset. But it's also, kind of even taken the experiences of God to a level that isn't godly or right. It's sort of like all about experience. Well, here's the thing about experience. Like, we need experiences with God. Like, that's why we gather in different forms. Like, we need to encounter God. But if the experiences don't lead to servanthood, they lead to being inbred. And they lead to, we have to have an outlet to all the things that we receive. The kingdom of God is about receiving and then serving. It's about giving. And what we want multiplied is we want to feed that army mindset. We want people to love their neighbor, to go out into the world and actually serve other people. What do we want multiplied? Because as a leader, you have to ask yourself, what are you sacrificing in? What are you modeling? And this isn't just showing up to serve. This is about like how I die to myself in all kinds of different ways. Like, it's not just about like what I do on the platform. It's about like, how do I respond in dying to self when people say things about me that aren't true? Like, am I spending all my time trying to defend myself? Like, at the end of the day, people are going to believe what they want to believe. And as a leader, you only have so much energy. And if your energy is going around trying to defend yourself or trying to prove who you are, listen, people believe what they want to. And you have to decide who it is that you're serving. And living from that place of sacrifice isn't just about showing up. It's about modeling, dying to self, that, hey, listen, like, if you're not, willing to see who I am and what God's called me into, that's okay. That's all right. I'm not going to run around and defend myself. I'm not going to, try to prove I'm right about everything. I'm going to die to myself here, and I'm going to let God raise other people up to defend me. And at the end of the day, some people just aren't going to like you. Like, you got to understand this as a leader. Some people are just never going to like you. They're never going to accept you. They're always going to see you as small. And, how many people, saw Moses as small? They would never, be able to see him and what God had placed on his life. That's the reality of it. The third thing is spiritual leaders don't sell out. So it says here in verse 25, where it says that he regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt, because he was looking ahead for his reward. So if you're going to be used effectively by God, you've got to establish your priority system and your value system. And your priorities come from your values. And if your values are set, then you won't sell out. Moses here did not sell out. The word regarded here literally means to watch. It means to judge. It means to consider. It means to kind of weigh in the balance. Like, he knew what he was saying no to. Like, he knew what he was giving up. But there's a few things here. There's three things that actually I think we see in culture, and we see it in the church. And it's what Moses said no to. One is in verse 24, like, he did not buy into what was popular. And we cannot confuse with how many people are at something or what's popular as being God. Like, that is like, the enemy can gather. How many know that? Like, the enemy can gather. And just because something's popular does not mean that it's God. And you as a leader have to die to that idea of popularity, which goes against the current of culture, because that dying to self, and of course you want to be liked. Like, it's stupid to say, I don't care what people think about me. You're human. So when people say that, that's actually not healthy either. Like, it's not about putting yourself down or not wanting people to like you, but you cannot be led by popularity, because that changes over time, first of all, and everybody's scope is different, and it's God who actually picks our scope. But here's the thing about popularity and affirmation. Like, it's okay to want it, it's okay to desire it, but it's deadly to be led by it. Like, we can't be led by, like, popularity does not mean that it's necessarily God. And I'll just tell you, that's why God moves around a lot, because our heads get so big we can't even get through the door. The second thing here is that in verse 25, where it talks about that he gave up his comfort, the pleasures of life. Like, it's the self-sacrificing choices that we make and that constant dying to self. And the third thing is it talks about the possessions of what he has. Like there's something about like not allowing the things of this world to infiltrate our leadership. And that means in what we have. And I think in the church, we really do look at things as in, it's not just about like popularity, but it's also about like how much money I'm going to make. I can't tell you how many worship leaders that I meet, they want to be a worship leader because they want to be a millionaire, or they want this popularity thing. And it's like nonsensical. First of all, it's stealing what belongs to the Lord, but it's also this possession thing of wanting more. And, it's that thing inside of you that has to die, because the Lord will bless you if you're in the place of obedience. The Lord will bless you. But the thing is, if you are led by what you have, then you will do whatever you can to get more. And you will manipulate. I'm telling you this as a leader, you will manipulate to get more if possessions is how you mark your life. You have to die to that thing inside of you, because otherwise it will lead you. And it's not bad to have stuff. It's just that stuff can't have you. The fourth thing here, spiritual leaders persevere. It says in verse 27 that it was by faith that Moses left Egypt, not fearing the king's anger. He persevered because he saw who was invisible. And I think actually in this context here in Hebrews 11, it says it's by faith that Moses persevered. So how many know faith is a gift? Gifts get imparted. In other words, we need faith every day, but spiritual leaders persevere. Is it not true that we live in a culture where people sign up for the ministry not realizing what the ministry is, and perseverance isn't necessarily in their system? You have to get perseverance within the core of who you are. And I know that so many leaders are able to be really productive right now in new and different ways because they have sown into perseverance. I'm going to tell you this: if you've signed up for ministry for possessions or popularity or any of that other stuff, you're going to be sorely disappointed, because perseverance is the mark of the leader. It is the mark of the leader. Like, we have to persevere. It says by faith Moses left Egypt. We become leaders because we have to persevere through the hard stuff. Leaders are leaders because they have to call and make the big decisions that nobody else wants to make. And here's the thing. If you're going to call the shots, you're going to take the shots. And perseverance means that you have to make hard decisions that not everybody else likes. That's why popularity cannot be the mark of your ministry. Like, if you're going to call the shots, you're going to take the shots. And in perseverance, you making the choice that whatever I lead, whether it be big, whether it be small, it's not about that. It's about obedience to God. And I am going to persevere. And I think when it comes to the church, we have looked at what's popular as being God. We have looked at, look at how much they have. God must be blessing them. But I'm telling you, some of the most powerful ministries are those who are just serving the church week in and week out, and they're just getting up and they're persevering and they're obeying whatever it is that God's asked them to do. And perseverance is huge for the leader, because this is something that will come up time and time again, that we have to sign up again. And we have to choose that, okay, I really don't like, if you think it's been easy leading this last season of pandemic, it's been super hard for leaders. That choice to persevere, how many know? You're like, oh my gosh, I've had to persevere through so many different things, and this has been the hardest season. For many leaders, that perseverance gift has had to come to the surface time and time again. That is something, as a leader, we have to get into the depths of the core of who we are. Remember Moses, I think we over-glamorize ministry. And Moses had to lead a people, for, 40 years. That was a nightmare. And then another 40 years that, all around in circles, which should have only took a few weeks. And the people were known for their grumbling. I mean, it was a thankless job. But if we look at the life of Moses, we've over-glamorized it. We over-glamorize these stories of the Bible, that this was amazing. These people, are trekking through the desert, serving God, proclaiming the gospel. They had to smell. It's like practical terms. This This is like they're dirty physically, like getting to a place to serve God, having to persevere, having to push through. Moses' call was a difficult call. So those dying to self and giving up those things that he gave up in order to follow God, yes, God blessed him. But it was not easy. And that perseverance is something that when we are in leadership and as a spiritual leader, we are modeling, hey, listen, I'm going to follow Jesus no matter what I come up against. Like, I'm going to follow Jesus no matter how hard this gets. Because at the end of the day, you got to know the Jesus that you signed up to follow. And you got to know the Jesus that you signed up to serve. And I'll tell you this, leaders, people watch you more when you go through difficulty and how you handle difficulty more than any other time. Like, that's what I think. It's faith in adversity that gives credibility to the gospel. It is when we have to persevere and people are like, oh my gosh, they still love Jesus. That's the model of the leader. Like, yeah, I still love Jesus. Life is hell. I'm going through hell. This season is horrible. And that leader's like, but I still love Jesus. I'm still serving Jesus. So persevering is so very important. So persevere where God has you. Know that God, if God's called you, you're a spiritual leader. Don't sell out on temporary things for the bigger picture. And sign up for the right reasons. Because when we sign up for the right reasons, it's like God just gives us his power and his strength to persevere wherever it is that he calls us to. So I hope this is encouraging to you. There's so many things in this text alone, but that's just 4 things for today. And I know they challenge me. I know every time I read something, even the same passage, I'll get something else out of it. So I hope this was challenging and encouraging for you today.